gross.
You're gross. You're gross. You're so gross. Fuck you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Explaining Warhammer to My Girlfriend. My name is Ava, and joining me, as always, is my lovely significant other, Carrie.
I'm in a closet.
We're in a closet.
Yeah, I'm trying to improve the sound quality, so I decided to record in my actual sound booth,
Oh, yeah.
which I might boil alive. But for you guys, that's okay.
It's all worth it.
I'll just pretend to be a salamander.
Today, we are talking about FERRUS Manus.
That dude.
Primarch of the Iron Hands. My love, what do you know about FERRUS Manus?
That his name is not Iron Man.
Yes.
It is Iron Hands.
Yes.
Which is confusing with Manus, I gotta be real.
Well, Manus means hands.
I'm just saying, it sounds like man.
Yeah. Latin is confusing.
We love Latin.
It's pretty good.
My school had a Latin catchphrase.
Oh?
Tum est.
What does that mean?
It means a place of mind.
Oh.
It can also be translated to mean it's up to you.
Fair.
In which case, it is spelt out cum est.
Ooh.
C-U-U-M
Cum.
est.
Speaking of cum, what do you know about...
Men. Let me tell you something about men.
No.
Cum.
Is there anything else you know about FERRUS Manus?
He is the third to be found Primarch.
Yeah.
Look at me.
As we can assume.
Don't take this from me. These are moments of pride for me to know things in advance.
No, it's good that you know this.
Well, I figured it out based on context, because he's the third one we're doing.
Anything else?
Oh, how his head gets chopped off?
Uh-huh. Yeah. We've gotten a couple comments.
I've been told don't lose my head over what happens.
People are really funny about this online, and they're not subtle about it whatsoever.
To compare him to a magical girl, one might choose Mommy.
I don't know what that is.
That's fair. I'm going to scar you one day.
Oh. Oh no. Oh no.
I'm trying to think of other decapitation puns. He's first up on the chopping block.
Oh, yeah.
He gets axed. I don't know what does it.
Yeah. Dear commenters.
I read all the comments, so if you leave spoilers, I'm going to see them.
Yeah, so just, I ask...
Thanks, guys. I know that freaking Horace dies. Thanks, guys.
No. We're not saying this as, like, people have done anything wrong. It's just one of those things of, like, maybe the surprise has been taken away, but that's okay. So, obviously, going into this, we kind of know where this Primarch is going to leave off.
His neck.
So... We have a bit more context with this one than we might with the others, so just a forewarning. But before we get into it, if you would like to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/numbskulls, where you can get access to a private Discord, bloopers, early episodes, submitted questions to be read on the show, and much, much more, all over at patreon.com/numbskulls. If you want to check out our new objective markers and some new art prints, head on over to orchidate.com
Guys.
/collection/num-skulls.
Are you going to be playing the cool new female custodians that we just got pictures of from the show? Because if you are...
Fight like a girl.
Look at this cool objective marker you could use. It makes me feel empowered.
If you would like to check these out and much more, head on over to orchidate.com. Link in the description.
That thing down there.
If you want to get some energy, use code NUMSKULLS over at gamersubs.com for 10% off your order. And if you don't got any money for that, perfectly okay. We appreciate just a simple like, a subscribe, a comment, boost us on the algorithm. Very much appreciated. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, if you're listening on like Spotify or something, give us a 5-star rating.
Yeah.
Yeah, that really helps.
Very much appreciated.
My love.
My love. Whoa.
Beat you to it.
That whoa. Yes?
I just realized this guy has something in common with us.
What's that?
Well, by the end of this, his skull will also be numb.
Oh. We're not gonna get to that today, but...
Really?
No, well...
That's my whole joke this whole episode. You can't take this away from me.
FERRUS Manus.
They already did that with his head.
Out of all the Primarchs, FERRUS does not have a ton of lore.
Or a ton of cranium.
There's a few reasons for this. And it's mostly because the Horus Heresy was not supposed to be this 60-plus long series of books.
Right.
It was supposed to be, like, just a couple, like maybe 10 at most.
Then they were supposed to chop it off.
Yeah, well...
Cut it off.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so it blew up in popularity, and it got way bigger and way crazier than anyone could have assumed, meaning that Unfortunately, Ferrus here isn't around for much of it,
Right.
due to he is the first Primarch to go out.
Right.
Obviously, in context, personally, I think it's really cool, and I think it's still important to talk about this character, and it's important to hype him up a bit, because he doesn't have a ton going on, but I think what is there has a lot of potential, and I think it's really sad that we never got to see more of it. You know what I mean?
It's also, I think, important. Oftentimes, characters that you lose at the beginning of a story kind of really build the foundation for world building in the sense of like,
It raises the stakes.
yes, exactly. And it can tell you something about a character. Like, we know the Primarchs are like superpowered superhumans, so what kills them off?
Exactly.
I guess taken off the top.
Yep.
So you're saying basically that Games Workshop was like, here's just a little crumb of books, and then they got popular, so they were like, well, let them eat cake. And then that went about as well as it did last time.
Yep.
Okay.
And now we have a billion books and
the coolest Olympics opening ever.
well, yes.
That was a Marie Antoinette joke.
Oh. I thought we were still on Warhammer.
Well,
Sorry.
we are, but I'm saying that it's funny because she got decapitated.
That's true. God. Oh, no. So, I have to call out our good pal, friend of the show, Bricky.
Bricky!
He tried his best to make FERRUS Manus cool,
Hi, Bricky. Aw.
and he says that he wasn't able to pull it off.
Aw.
And I've listened to that episode, and I think he did a very good job with what he had. So, this episode, we are going to go through Ferrus's origin story. I've added a bit of fluff to it,
Oh, we love fluff.
just to like make it more of like a myth.
That's like-
a Greek myth.
Last Primarch, all fluffy.
Yeah, like Lehman Russ. I'm trying to make these a little more fluffy, give a bit more details of some of the things they did. People gave me really great feedback on the Lehman Russ episode, and I'm gonna try to take that as we go forward. So are you ready
Yeah.
to learn about the origins of FERRUS Manus?
I am.
We begin
Oh.
on the planet Medusa.
Wait.
More specifically, Medusa 4.
What do you...
It's the fourth Medusa.
Wait, what?
Well, because there's a lot of planets under the Imperium, so there's a couple planets that are named the same, just with a number. So there's like Istvan, and then there's like Istvan 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. It might be part of the same system. Like, this is the Istvan system, you know?
Right.
So,
So it's not like Earth 2, otherwise known as Planet Bob.
not quite, no. I don't think there is like a Terra 2 or anything like that. I think there's only one Terra.
Right.
Medusa is a waste world, located right next to the Eye of Terror. Do you remember what the Eye of Terror is?
Yeah, that's not good.
Yeah, it's not good at all.
Wait, okay, a waste world.
So,
We heard that before.
no, we've heard of Death Worlds, which is like everything, including the fauna and flora, want to, it's extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
Medusa is our first waste world.
Mhm.
The planet's atmosphere is extremely polluted, and it's so cloudy that most of the planet is dark.
Okay.
Just forever. The atmosphere is just so thick. There's volcanoes and earthquakes all the time.
Oh.
And the citizenry who are there are just tribal groups
Right.
who fight each other for land and resources because they're so scarce.
Right.
Nothing can really grow.
Well, listen, volcanic soil is incredibly nutritious to crops.
Yeah, but when you don't have a sun,
No, that'll kind of mess you up.
it gets a little
The warp, that
complicated.
probably doesn't mess with anything. It'll be fine.
They're mostly fine. They're not doing very fine.
Oh.
Are you ready to get fluffy with it?
I love fluff.
Let's do some story time.
Oh.
Long ago, the planet Medusa saw a fiery comet streak across its smoggy sky.
Oh, and the ducks looked up.
The comet crashed onto the surface. Some chose to acknowledge it as an omen of sorts, while most were too busy thinking of where their next meal would come from. Overall, the planet was unbothered by the arrival of FERRUS Manus.
Right.
In the vast wastelands, there was a cave, and in that cave was a pod, and in that pod there was a boy. The boy had no name yet, but already was intellectually sharp and curious of his surroundings, observing even the most minute details.
Oh, he's got a good head on his shoulders.
Uh-huh.
Good for chopping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He recognized the cave he was in was not natural. Something was wrong with it. The edges were too sharp, unnatural, and cubic, not at all like the world he could see outside. The boy descended further into the cave and found the walls lined with ancient runes, pylons on the floor that rose up, electricity dancing between them. Upon touching one of these pylons, the cave began to rumble, and from the deepest depths came a monster, a worm of colossal size, like WYRM, like a snaky dragon.
Oh, Nick.
It attacked the boy, and its unnatural skin shined bright silver in the dim light. Every attack the boy made was worthless because the monster's skin was made of metal.
Oh.
The worm eventually noticed the cave entrance and, with blinding speed, escaped onto the surface. The boy chased after it, but it was already gone, and a heavy weight fell onto his chest. He had just released a horrible monster onto the world, and any harm it caused would be his responsibility. He vowed that he would find this creature and kill it.
Baby crashes.
Yep.
In cave.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately sits up, battles dragon.
It's very Hercules.
Is he still an infant? And he's like, oh, no.
It's unclear.
Oh, no, it is very Hercules. He's just gonna...
It is very Hercules. Instead of a snake, it's...
How does he even know other people are on the planet to kill?
He's smart.
He's
again
omniscient.
There is an aspect of these Primarch origin stories that we need to keep in mind, where how much of this is fact and how much of this is fluff that is literally from the Imperium of, like, I went to an Imperial library and checked out a book that is the origin of the mystical Primarch, FERRUS Manus, you know?
Right.
So how much of this is fiction, how much of it is fact?
Right. It's a little Kiriko.
Kiriko?
It's a African legend about a boy who is entirely intelligent and able to talk, like, right out of his mother's womb. Just, like, goes around and does stuff right away.
That's pretty common in myths, though.
Yeah.
Like, you know, this hero who is a baby, it's just like, oh yeah, they're just out, they're good, they're fine.
Yeah.
In the years that followed, the tribes of Medusa would sometimes be visited by a wandering man. The man would arrive, help the people in some way, and just as quickly as he came, he left. His feats and strength gained him many names, for he did not have one. They called him the Cataclysm, Rehu Netjer, Son of Man.
Son of Man.
But most simply knew him as the Hunter, for he was always searching for the great silver worm, Asirnoth.
Oh!
All the while, the man had one singular thought. Stronger.
Oh.
I must become stronger.
What about better? Faster? Harder?
Generalization of just all those things.
Work it, makes it, do it better.
The man would test himself with greater and greater feats to become just that, stronger. This went on for years and years, until one day, deep in the land of shadows, a place so thick with dust and smog it was entirely shrouded in darkness, he found a trail.
Oh.
He followed the tracks for days, stalking and winding through ancient ruins of black, angular stone, identical to the cave he first saw so long ago. And then he found it, Asirnoth.
Oh.
The great silver worm was unaware of the man, and the smog helped him sneak closer to it. He waited for the perfect opportunity to strike, and when the moment came, he pounced. For days, the man battled with Asirnoth, both never wavering, never tiring. The great worm attempted to escape several times, but the man was faster now, and could easily catch up in a matter of moments. But try as he might, he could never harm the creature, and the creature could never seemingly keep the man down. Their stalemate continued until they reached a river of flowing lava.
Oh no.
An idea shot across the man's mind, and when an opening appeared, he tackled the beast, forcing its body into the lava,
Oh no.
shoving his hands in to keep it beneath the surface.
Oh god.
He and the creature shrieked, and the metal turned to liquid. And when he pulled his hands from the lava, he was shocked to find they were now fused with the metal flesh of Asirnoth, grafted onto him like a parasite.
It's like Dodongo's cavern, but worse. Oh dear.
So yeah, he now has metal hands.
Are they metal all the way through?
No.
It's just like a glove?
It's like an extra layer skin.
Okay.
But he can't remove them.
Yeah.
Normally. He might be able to, but he would probably lose his arms in the process.
Right.
But, yeah.
Okay. Oh dear. Oh no. So wait, okay, so this is a worm made of metal?
It is a Necron.
Oh, okay. I understand.
canoptic creature
Oh.
that usually is there to monitor planets.
So it's living metal?
Yeah, the metal on his arms is actually necrodermis. He melted it down and it just like fused into his hands.
Interesting. Okay, that makes, I don't know if it makes more sense, but my brain can accept it better.
Wow. Right, yeah. So all of the black angular stuff that he was going through and the cave that he landed in was actually part of this Necron.
Zoo?
No.
This is their Jurassic World.
Like a Necron fortress.
He's literally in the fire temple.
Whether or not Medusa is actually a Necron tomb world, and there's like Necrons just asleep down beneath, I don't think has ever been confirmed or denied, so that might be the case.
Oh.
But yeah,
Okay.
he killed the canoptic entity.
Well, you were first telling the story. I thought that the worm was made of stone or something.
No,
which
metal.
I was like, this is going to be an interesting reveal with a place called Medusa.
Mm-hmm.
If like all the creatures are made of stone and then it turns out there's a snake lady or something. I just thought that maybe that would, but I mean, okay, cool. But also, like, you could say that there are maybe Medusa undertones to the Necron story. Like, they don't get turned to actual stone, but they're statues almost.
That's true. Yeah, there's a connection there. There's more of a Medusa connection later.
Listen, if you really applied your brains to it, just like this guy does later to the ground.
Oh.
Yay.
Why do you bully him?
I'm not.
Don't bully him.
I'm bullying you. He's dead. What's he
The man returned to Medusa's tribes with newfound conviction. He taught them all he knew about technology, forging, building, all the wonders and destruction it could bring. With this, the tribes ascended at an astronomical pace, and the people prospered under the guidance of who they now called FERRUS MANUS, the Iron Hand. FERRUS made sure to stay neutral on any conflicts the tribes might get into, for he saw any opportunity for battle was a good way of improving strength and cutting out weakness.
Whoa. People have a disagreement and he's just like, fight each other?
He's a radical centrist.
That's not centrism. That's...
He's neutral on everything.
I wouldn't call that neutral.
Well, he doesn't get involved.
I mean, he forces a fight.
No. If a fight happens, he just doesn't get involved.
He just doesn't do anything? So he's a shitty leader.
Well, I wouldn't say he's the leader of this planet necessarily. He's like Prometheus. He came down with the fire and he's like, you do whatever you want with this. And then, they do what they do and he's just neutral. He's just chilling.
And he's tied to a rock somewhere.
He's not tied to a rock yet.
No, right. That's just his head.
No. If a war were to break out on Medusa, FERRUS MANUS would not get involved. He would see it as like, oh, well, good. Whoever's strongest will survive.
So he doesn't care about anyone?
We'll talk about his personality in just a second.
Okay.
One day, a stranger arrived on Medusa.
Who could it be?
Clad in shining golden armor, the likes of which they had never seen.
Oh my gosh.
He came searching for a legendary wanderer known as FERRUS MANUS, and when they met, he introduced himself as the Emperor of Mankind.
He's got to stop leading with that.
FERRUS found this stranger curious. To call himself that was bold indeed, and so he challenged this so-called emperor to a duel. The emperor agreed.
Not so centrist now.
He got really upset about the Lehman trials, and he was like, I'm not doing that ever again. Next one, I'm just going straight to the duel. I don't care.
I already had lunch.
Lightning cracked, the earth shook, volcanoes erupted, and mountains crumbled from the force at which these two giants clashed. Each blow was mightier than the last, never tiring, equal in strength and skill both. Their fists collided one last time, the force of which sent a shockwave that split the very smog around them, causing the sun to shine onto Medusa's surface, something that had not happened in over a millennia.
This sounds like when you do a little duel with Lise.
Yeah, they're doing like just shockwave, like Dragon Ball fights.
Everybody underneath the big statue is like,
The Willem Dafoe face.
is that a primal?
FERRUS smiled, satisfied. Finally, he had met someone who was his equal, perhaps even stronger than he. Gladly, FERRUS joined the Emperor of Man on a journey back to Terra.
So this guy shows up, kills a worm, gets cool hands, goes, look at this, guys, gives everybody tech.
Mhm.
They all start fighting each other. A bigger guy shows up and he goes, that's cool. And then he leaves.
Well, hold on. You're making it seem like he caused a bunch of wars to happen. That's not true. All of the tribes were pretty meh, all things considered, but whenever a war or a spat or a battle would occur, he just wouldn't interact.
He just went back to his cave.
Maybe, yeah, he's just chilling in his cave.
I mean, is he benefiting in any way from these societies?
No, not necessarily. He just, he likes people being strong. He finds value in strength.
It feels like we've been hearing with the Mr. Beast games of like, it's a test of strength.
FERRUS Manus comes back with this new Iron Hand and he's like, guys, I've got a great idea.
Look at this chocolate bar.
Guys.
The last person on this planet gets to keep it.
Oh no. If you can survive the War of Medusa, you get $10,000.
And you know what? The next 5 people to subscribe get Numbskulls merch.
Aw, yeah. Big E takes FERRUS Manus back to Terra. He gives him the whole spiel about the Great Crusade again. Everything that he's told his other sons. They meet up with Lehman and Horus, and he's gifted the 10th Legion. Originally nicknamed the Stormwalkers, now renamed to the Iron Hands.
I kind of hoped you were going to say the Head Rollers.
No, the Iron Hands.
Okay.
Their logo is an iron hand.
Great.
They have a ship called the Fist of Iron.
Okay. And that's a little different. I'll give them that.
So it's the one thing that's different about it. So I really like the Iron Hands color scheme. It's very simple.
Yeah.
In 30K, it's metallic black with silver trim. They quite like prosthetics. We'll talk more about that in just a second. But what's really cool, they paint their bolter casings white.
Okay.
Rather than the standard factory black. But I love bolter casings that are a color rather than just the standard black.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I paint bolter casings red. I just think that looks nice.
Yeah.
But the white with the black armor looks really, really good.
Nice little contrast.
Oh, yeah. Their 40K scheme, officially, the metal black is kind of gone. It's more of just a flat paint black. And they also paint their hands silver.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
But when people actually go to paint it, they usually do a combination of they still do the metallic black, or they'll like dry brush a metallic onto them or whatever. But they're both really cool, very strong color schemes.
Right.
I like them a lot.
It gives me you are who you choose to be.
Iron Giant?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
Second Vin Diesel reference in 2 episodes.
Oh, God, you're right. Oh, that's weird.
Right? He's everywhere. Next, we're going to be talking about
family.
I killed a guy with this cup.
The Iron Hands, when they met up with FERRUS Manus, he really started to drill into them his beliefs in how he gets things done,
right,
which is a bit different than the other Primarchs in that, does it work? Good. It's not fancy. It's not flamboyant. It's not underperforming. It gets the job done.
Can you give me an example?
Why would I add a bunch of filigree and bullshit onto this weapon when it works just the same as it looking out of the factory brand new?
I mean, why would y'all paint your hands silver?
That's later.
Right, okay. He's not into the,
Why does that have to be fancy? It gets the job done.
Fair enough.
His sons, they saw that he had his iron hands, and they were like, oh, I want to be like Dad.
Right.
So they started cutting off their limbs. They have a bunch of prosthetics all the time, and they started yelling the phrase, flesh is weak. As you can imagine, they get along with the Mechanicus quite a bit.
Yeah.
They really like the Mechanicus.
I'm also imagining that after what happens, they're not around no more.
No, they're still around.
Okay. They don't get ahead of themselves.
With the whole flesh is weak thing, ironically, FERRUS hated this.
Well, yeah. I mean, like now they gotta take time to heal. It's gonna be medical bills.
Well, they're like Space Marines. They heal like instantly if you cut a limb off.
What, they're like Titans? They just start smoking?
We're gonna have a whole Space Marine episode and like, what does it mean to be a Space Marine? How do you become a Space Marine? What are the surgeries a Space Marine goes into? We're gonna have all of that and talk more about that later. But as a simple thing now, if you cut off a limb of a Space Marine, their biology works in such a way that they will just instantly heal. They don't really bleed. You know what I mean?
Do they sprout a new hand, or is it just now they've got a stump?
They have a stump, but
it's a healed stump.
It's not necessarily healed, but like the blood
Coagulates.
That's the word.
They won't bleed out.
No, they're not going to bleed out. No. If they do, you hurt him a lot.
You say that like it's not one of the most common ways to die.
I have a quote of FERRUS MANUS writing about how he feels about his legion beginning to give themselves more prosthetics
Okay.
as time goes on.
Brah, my sons are fucked up. I think it's a phase, but I'm not sure. There really are no therapists on this goddamn planet.
You're closer than you think.
Oh, no.
They are not my hands. This fact is forgotten by my brothers. Inexplicably, it has always seemed to me. The hands are strong, to be sure, and have created great things for us all, but they are not mine, and that counts for something. They forget that the silver on my arms comes from a beast that I vanquished. It is the mark of a great evil that I ended, and yet it persists within me. I would struggle to remove them now. I will not remove the silver from my flesh because I have learned to depend on it. The fault is with my mind. I rely on the augmentation given to me by my metal gauntlets so much that the flesh beneath them is now little more than a distant memory. A day will come when I will strip it from me, lest I lose the power to master myself forever. Already my legion's warriors replace their shield hands with metal in my honor, and so they too are learning to doubt the natural strength of their bodies. They must be weaned off this practice before it becomes a mania for them. Hatred of what is natural, of what is human, is the first and greatest of corruptions. So I record it here. When the time comes, I will strip my hands of their unnatural silver. I will instruct my legion to recant their distrust of flesh. I will turn them away from the gifts of the machine and bid them relearn the mysteries of the flesh, bone, and blood. When my father's crusade is over, this shall be my sacred task. When the fighting is done, I shall cure my legion and myself. For if fighting is all there is, if we may never pause to reflect on what such devotion to strength is doing to us, then our compulsion will only grow.
Interesting.
FERRUS is an interesting guy for what little of the story that he's in. And this is sort of the shame part of it, where I think FERRUS is really interesting and I would love to see more about him, but unfortunately, he goes out at like the start of the fucking series.
Mm-hmm. He heads it all off. I'm sorry. I find it interesting that he wants better for his sons.
Yeah.
Especially considering his like apathy when it came to what I would consider pretty terrible things on his home planet. But also I find it interesting that this is an example of appropriation.
Oh.
And how mixed feelings can be about it. Because he has to live with this thing, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a choice. He has it because of a situation that happened to him. And then all of his guys are like, that looks rad! And they cut off their hands.
Yo!
It's literally like appropriation. You take something for, it could be multiple reasons. It looks cool. It's useful. But you're not considering the fact that it came from whoever originally had it, a culture or people or whatever. Maybe they had no choice to do that. And to commodify it, thus, can be kind of disturbing and take away a bit of what might be a part of their self-identity. I try to think of people who are born without limbs or who go through some kind of an amputation or an injury.
Yes.
And obviously, I think a lot of them, you know, if they could flick a switch and have a hand back or something, I think many of them would. But at the same time, a lot of them like really become proud of what they overcome. I can't speak for them. I'm not an amputee. But stories I've heard and things. I mean, literally the Paralympics is happening right now.
Yeah.
As another interesting example. And it's like the things people are doing. It's incredible to watch. It is honestly like a marvel of human body and mind.
There's that girl who's like 17 who hit the bullseye. That's fucking sick.
Yeah. And that might require her to use tools and things that an able-bodied or average-bodied person, I don't know, because I don't want to say normal-bodied because that doesn't sound, that's not the best language. Just somebody who might be in the regular Olympics, not the Paralympics, would maybe not even be allowed to use those tools. And then you get into that interesting argument of accommodation versus advantage, because people would be like, well, why can't the regular archers use...
Well, you know something about that.
I do, in the sense of reading or various things. When I was in school, you know, I'm dyslexic, I have ADHD. I was given more time on tests because I literally am a slower reader than most people. It takes me longer to read something and it takes me longer to write it out and it takes me a little longer to think about things. I can learn. I could even become become an expert in things, but it will take me longer than the average person. But like, I would often hear people being like, well, why does she get extra time? Or if I did well on a test, people would be like, well, yeah, you had an extra 25 minutes. It comes to an understanding of what is the difference between an accommodation and an advantage, because an accommodation is meant to even the playing field, so to speak. Like, a wheelchair is an accommodation for someone who can't walk or who can't walk very far. A dreadnought is an accommodation for somebody who used to be able to just be maybe a space marine, but now they only have a head. Where was that option?
And I find it interesting, bringing it back to Warhammer, that from his Legion's perspective, they're doing it out of respect. They want to be like their dad, you know?
Well, you'll often hear people who are doing appropriation. When it's pointed out to them, they'll be like, well, it just shows you how much I love that culture. You should feel good about it.
Do you know how many white girls I went to high school with and they had dream catchers on their backpacks?
Yeah, which, you know, maybe some of them have some...
Sure, absolutely.
Like, I would never assume someone's background, but dream catchers are definitely an example of something that has been westernized to heck.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, we could talk about many examples. And a lot of them are very complicated because many, many things. But it is an example of that conversation of, I know you're trying to show me you appreciate you, but you guys are kind of like, you don't get it.
Yeah.
There is value to understand when you have choice in an action or a decision about yourself, your body, whatever, that somebody else doesn't, and be aware of that because it's privilege.
But I want to be like dad.
Right. But you're also not like dad.
Literally built different.
Literally built different. As soon as you were talking about them doing that and how he was kind of reflecting on it, I wrote down feels appropriated. And in a way where there is a pity to it. He wants them to not feel they have to do that. But he is also not able to just go to them at this point and say, guys, stop it.
Yeah.
Because I think he sees that there is value in the sense of like...
They feel a morale boost.
Yeah.
When they do this.
Yeah. It's like a right, like a passing of...
Yes. It's a tradition now in 40k. If they don't have a prosthetic, they will paint their hands silver. And when people do a lot of kit bashing for making an Iron Hands Legion, which unfortunately Iron Hands are one of the more unpopular Space Marines to collect, people will always kit bash like a ton of cool looking prosthetics onto them. But like, that's just what they do.
Yeah.
They love that shit. And because of their very close ties with the Mechanicus, they're able to do that on a extreme level.
Right.
But it is interesting how Ferrus, again, as you said, he doesn't really know how to stop it. And this is a trend that we will see in multiple Primarchs where they go, oh, dad has this thing. I want to be like dad. And they'll go and do something that is unalterable. And the most infamous example is Angron, I would say.
I was about to say, yeah, this doesn't just go with the Space Marines, it goes to the Primarchs as well.
Yes, to the point where Angron, we'll talk about it more when we get into his episode, but he has nails in his head.
Yes.
That make him feel an incredible amount of pain if he is not incredibly fuck-ass mad all the time. And so some of his sons are like, oh, maybe it'll make dad happy if we get those in our heads. He'll feel like he's not alone. To where they do that, and he gets even more pissed off.
So it's like absolutely gone wrong. A version of, you know, when you see those beautiful videos where like a little girl has cancer and she has to shave her hair, and then her mom is at the salon with her and also gets her head shaved so that she's not alone. Or like I've seen ones where people's like their whole class will shave their head or something.
Yeah.
It's like we're in this together. And like you can see where that kind of thing would be beautiful, would be empowering.
But it's like, unfortunately, you are installing something into your head called the butcher's nails.
Yeah, that's not great.
That's not great. Don't do that.
Quickly, in psychology, this could go into several different conditions. Body integrity dysphoria, and it can also be known as amputee identity disorder, is a rare medical disorder that's characterized by having a sensory or a physical disability and feeling discomfort with being able-bodied. And so you see these kinds of people, sometimes they just feel weird about it. Like sometimes they get a good therapist and everything ends up being okay enough that, you know, no harm is done.
40k, we don't have those.
But sometimes you see really, really intense cases where these people like chop off a limb or two.
Ooh.
Or will disfigure their own faces.
Or in a 40k sense, you join the Mechanicus
Mhm.
and you start to become more of a machine because, oh, my flesh is so weak.
Yeah, this condition isn't really understood.
Right.
I would be very interested to do more research into it because it's not something that I ever specialized in. And it is what a lot of people who don't understand trans psychology attribute to the transition process when that's not what it is. But yeah, it is fascinating that people feel this compulsion to not just harm themselves. It's not self-harm. Like, we know the psychology of self-harm, and it is a different thing. They don't necessarily want to feel pain, but there is something about having their body be complete that seriously bothers them. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that is what is happening here because, one, that's usually very individualistic. I don't think there are cases where it happened in like a cult-like atmosphere necessarily. And two, like, obviously here, it's a little bit more logical. Logic's not exactly the right word, but like they are trying to kind of like...
They want to get stronger.
They want to get stronger, and so they are trying to do something similar that somebody has done. It's different entirely, but it's a bit like going out to kill a wolf or something because all the other Spartans did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a bad idea.
But...
Don't go.
But...
But...
if you come back, now you're a badass.
Now you're a badass, and you get to be in the cool kids club.
So, as we've talked about, FERRUS MANUS has quite the personality. I would describe him as blunt as an anvil, but as hot as a furnace. He's got a bit of a temper problem.
Clonk?
No, not Clonk. He would love Clonk.
Oh, we all love Clonk.
In the sense of some of the things that he likes, obviously he values strength. He values not necessarily craftsmanship, just building in general. Like, he doesn't care if something's fancy. He cares if it works.
He gives me the sense of he's not into the fluff.
No.
He just wants a freaking hammer that is strong and will last.
Yes.
He doesn't necessarily want a hammer that has a laser sight.
Yeah, he does not care.
Yeah.
He's very, very, very blunt. Very much get the job done. A lot of his tactics on the battlefield, and this is also true to their rules as well, the Iron Hands specialize in vehicle combat. They love tanks. They love transports. They really get into the whole attacking with giant guns and vehicles. They love that shit.
Interesting.
And they will often adjust their vehicles to shoot better or to go faster or what have you.
Paint it red.
He respects strength,
Right.
very similar to a lot of the Primarchs, but I'd say he's a bit more like, you don't have to do as much, you know what I mean? And I think a good example is that at one point there was a situation in which a guardsman medic had worked for 3 days straight, day and night, never sleeping, helping people recover from their wounds. And I have a quote here. Ferrus addressed the mortal officer standing at Cicerus's back. He was garbed in a tan-colored dress uniform that had been misbuttoned, as if put on in haste. Over his stony gray crew cut was a peaked cap with a regimental crest in silver. His padded shoulders were sewn with badges of the 413th Expedition of Terra, the Jovian satellite Ganymede, and of Ultramar, the rank insignia of the Lieutenant Colonel of the Imperial Army and the Red Helix of the Medicae Corps. Ferrus frowned. The soldiers stood loosely at attention, hands resting atop one another, over the silver-crested head of the officer's cane, face turned down in what Ferrus had taken for awe at his present company. Duquesne emitted a bark of laughter, and only then did Ferrus realize that the man's eyes were closed, light snores rippling from his lips. In a crunch of mail, Ferrus relaxed back into his throne and chuckled. He then ordered that guard to go to sleep. Get some rest, soldier.
There's a little bit of humanity there.
He's weirdly human. As like brutal as he is in his tactics and his personality, I would say he puts a lot of that on because that's just how he is. He's very blunt, but he is human.
Yeah. Well, and logically speaking, honestly, like, there's a statistic, and I don't know what it is. I will have to look it up. But you can attribute a certain number of deaths for humans every year to doctors being overworked and tired because they missed something or they prescribed the wrong dose or something. Not because they didn't know what they were doing, but because sometimes they work 3 days in a freaking row. There's also that culture of like, never freaking stop.
There are some Primarchs who would be like, okay, yeah, why are you sleeping? Get back to fucking work.
I was a little bit worried that you were going to end that off and then he had him killed.
No. Ferrus would never do that.
Ferrus would never.
Ferrus would never.
Has a head still. Ferrus would never.
He will see how much work someone has done, whether they be human or Primarch or Space Marine, doesn't matter. They'll see how much work they've done and go, you know what? Good job. You earned a break. You earned a reward. You earned to like rest. You've done your part. Good job.
Because I was going to ask, who do you think he would respect more? Somebody who, let's say they have the ultimate sniper setup and they get a perfect bullseye. Or that guy at the Olympics who had one hand in his pocket, vaguely leaning back.
Did it get the job done?
It wasn't a perfect bullseye, but he won a medal.
Got the job done.
Okay, so it doesn't matter that it's perfect.
No, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. It's just, it got the job done.
Yeah. But would he not have as much respect for the guy who has like the 10 scope?
He'd be like, good job. I don't know why you did all that bullshit to set up.
Oh.
You could have just shot him.
He would get along with Emmett Selk.
He would get along with my dad.
Right, okay. So the result is what matters. It doesn't matter how you get there.
Exactly.
But it takes less energy to go the most direct way.
Exactly.
Right.
To describe how sometimes he would get a little hot-headed, this was definitely the biggest negative of him, is that he was quite emotional, I would say, a lot of the time.
Oh, okay.
So at one point, there was a thing called the Astrani Machine Empire. They were very similar to the Mechanicus.
Oh.
They had advanced technology like lasers, giant ships, and sentient energy ghosts.
Wait.
So the Mechanicus said...
That they made?
Fuck that. That's awful. That's heresy.
Right. They've got like Miku.
In the machine.
In the machine. They've got all the different Vocaloids.
So Ferrus, Rogaldorn, and Horus were tasked with deal with it. And during the last few days of the Astrani Empire's destruction, Rogaldorn suggested that actually we should take these people and put them into the Imperium.
Right, makes sense.
Ferrus said, fuck that, we had a mission, we're gonna do the fucking mission.
To be clear, the mission is...
Eliminate them.
Okay, the mission is not stop the activity. The mission is kill these people.
No, it is get rid of them.
Understood.
So Ferrus is like, that was the mission, we're doing the fucking mission. Rogaldorn didn't like that. They almost got into a fight. And Horus stepped in and was like, maybe Rogal's idea isn't so bad.
Hey guys, don't lose your heads, jeez.
And Ferrus said, fuck you, I'll fight you over it. And Horus beat him in a duel. So,
good job.
You know.
Okay, well that gives Rogaldorn and Horus some points in my book.
Well, another bad thing is that Ferrus, this happened on his ship in front of his sons.
Oh, okay.
So that's also like, ooh.
Yeah, they like disgraced him.
You undermined my authority.
My authority.
In front of my kids. Yeah. What the fuck,
right.
Dude?
No, I understand. Well, not just his kids, his unit. Like,
yeah, exactly. His soldiers. Like how
it's both.
Exactly, yeah.
Quick question, because I don't necessarily know how I understand the ranks. Who gave them the order?
Probably Biggie.
Iggy himself.
Yeah.
Or somebody
get rid
speaking
of him.
For him.
Deal with it.
And so the order was passed to the three of them.
It would have been passed to Horus. Probably.
Okay.
And then pass to, okay, let's deal with it. I'm taking Rogal and Ferrus.
Because I was thinking, wouldn't Horus be his superior based on what you've told me about?
Yes. Horus would be their superior.
So wouldn't Horus then saying, now we're not doing that anymore, be in order?
So this is before Horus becomes the War Master, which is basically the leader of all of the Space Marines.
So at this point, rank-wise, they're on the same level.
Technically, they're the same level, but Biggie plays favorites.
Yeah, yeah.
So technically, Horus is kind of like, he's got more authority.
Yeah, but it's like an unspoken thing.
Yeah, it's like, everyone kind of knows.
Yeah.
But we don't really talk about it.
Right. Okay, I understand.
Speaking of Biggie, Ferrus didn't really give a shit.
Right.
Just kind of indifferent to him. Like, he hung out. He was loyal.
Yeah.
He respected his strength more than anything.
Yeah.
And the Emperor respected him. What are you laughing about?
I just got this image of him being sent to Fenris with Russ on a mission or something, and Lehman is like, check this out, and goes and wrestles a mammoth. And he's like, whoa!
Sometimes Big E would come to him to ask him about his input on weapons or armor.
Right.
His hobby is like blacksmithing. He loves that shit.
Right.
He's just like in his forge, sweating all day, and then when it's time to go, he's like, all right, and he puts the armor on and goes out and does whatever.
It's also like the person who doesn't want to get fancy with things will often find the fastest way to do things.
Exactly.
I think it's Microsoft. They say they hire lazy people because they will figure stuff out
That's funny.
the easy way.
That's funny.
Like they'll make the spreadsheet that does all the math for them so they don't have to do the math. But now the company has the spreadsheet.
Yeah. As for Ferrus's relationship with his brothers, again, mostly indifferent. He kind of kept to himself a lot of the time. Like, he wasn't a very sociable guy.
Yeah.
If you talk to him, he would, like, be very honest with you. Again, blunt.
What does he say in the comes out to you as trans meme?
Goes, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, fair enough.
He's just kind of like, all right.
Cool. Put your armor back on. We're going.
Put it back on. We got a job to do. Let's go. I saw a fucking tweet.
Oh, no.
That was a person going, I came out as trans to my dad. And it was like this really emotional text message. And the message from the dad was, pizza here if you want it. And it's like that. that vibe of just like, all right.
I saw one once that was like a few weeks after this girl had come out as trans femme to their dad. And I think that it was like a single dad situation. And they like sent her a picture of like pads from the grocery store. And they were like, do you need any? It was like, oh, no, but thank you.
So Ferrus was indifferent for most of his brothers. He did have opinions on them, but he wouldn't like directly say it to their face.
He would write it in his little diary.
Except he got along with one. He really got along with Fulgrim.
Right. Pretty one. That's interesting.
He also did not like Rogel Dorn.
I have a feeling I'm gonna like Rogel Dorn.
Sorry, we'll see if that remains true.
Well, I don't know. Isn't he one of the ones you said I would like?
No.
Oh, okay, maybe not then. Maybe I'm getting him confused.
Rogel Dorn's the one that you think looked like Joe Biden.
Oh, maybe I'm getting him confused with Lion.
I think you are.
I might be getting him confused. Listen, none of them are my canoe. They don't float my boat.
So let's talk about how a lot of the Primarchs have overlapping skills and personality traits, and there is a lore reason for this.
Yeah.
It was pretty much confirmed by Malkador in one of the books that the reason why they have so many things that overlap is because it's a contingency. One of them dies. Well, we have another smith over there.
Yeah.
We have another guy who's really good at making tanks over there. He'll get the job done.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, we lost 2 already, wherever the hell they are.
Yeah. So if you went up to Ferrus and you were like, hey, Ferrus, you're really good at forging. I want to learn forging. He'd be like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. And you would go up in points in like his book. You know what I mean?
Right. For wanting to improve your skills.
Well, but also he just really likes forging.
He wants people in his hobby. He's sitting there forging little minis. Somebody's going to paint with him.
He also, for this reason, really respected Vulcan.
Okay, yeah.
And I have an excerpt about that.
Can you take this metal down to your planet? I can't get the kiln hot enough to melt it.
No. This is Ferrus talking to Big E. And Big E says,
You taught him much of your craft, Ferrus?
none, in truth. He needed no help in that regard. When I reached the forge, he was gone, and the armor with him. The Emperor smiled, as if pleased with his works.
Your assessment?
Overly flamboyant, but it appears to serve well.
Him, not his armor, Ferrus.
This is the stuff he pays attention to.
So this is why it is interesting to me that he would like, what's his name?
Fulgrim.
Fulgrim. Because Fulgrim's all about...
Well, we'll talk about the relationship. That's like the big thing in this episode about him joining up.
Is it one of those, like, they're like... Is it one of those?
No, not exactly. We'll talk about it in a second.
Ugh.
However, I talked about how Ferrus, if he didn't like you, he wouldn't really say it to your face.
Right.
And that's true. But he wouldn't make it, like, not obvious.
Oh, no.
He's a sassy bitch.
He's a girl.
He's...
He doesn't communicate directly. He just shoots you glances from the other side of class.
He's such a messy bitch. If you said something and he didn't like you, he would just like fucking roll his eyes at the war table. And it's like...
He's a mean girl.
He is a mean girl. He learned it from Fulgrim. It's okay. It's fine.
He like meets Vulcan and he's like, wow, you're really good at smelting. And Vulcan's like, thanks. And he's like, so you agree? You think you're really good at smelting?
He wouldn't say that to Vulcan.
No, but that's what...
Yeah, he would say that to Fulgrim. We have not talked about Lorgar. We've barely mentioned him. Lorgar's an interesting case. He's one of the last Primarchs we're going to talk about in this series. He's the religious one.
Okay.
And he's kind of meek, if that makes sense.
Right.
He's not necessarily a warrior.
Okay. No, that makes sense.
He's more of a preacher than a warrior.
Okay.
To give you a baseline understanding of him.
Right.
And I have an excerpt of him coming to see Ferrus at his forge. Lorgar had come to find Ferrus in his forge, working at the construction of something molten, dangerous, and undoubtedly destined to be a weapon of war. It seemed all the Iron Hands Primarch was capable of. Knowing the spiteful thought was petty, Lorgar sought to temper it. One wonders if you are capable of making anything that creates rather than destroys. He tried to smile, hoping it would rob the accusation of any venom as he stood uncomfortably in the heat, blaring from the open furnace. Ferrus cast a glance over his dark-skinned shoulder and watched his Fey brother for a moment, not returning the smile. One wonders if you are capable of creating anything worthwhile at all. Your eyes just like popped open. It's just like, oh, you're smiling really big. He's such a bitch.
This guy walked in the room and our guy was like, wow, it's really brave of you to wear that outfit. I'm just not that brave.
I love Ferrus. I wish he was in more. He's such a bitch.
Damn.
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 Damn. Gilliman,
Ugh.
Mr. Canoe.
Ah, Canoe, my guy.
Gilliman really liked Ferrus.
Okay.
He really liked Ferrus.
Ferrus is growing on me.
He described him as part of the Dauntless Few,
Oh.
a group of people that Gilliman determined to be the most reliable and unwavering of the Primarchs. They included Gilliman himself, Leman Russ, Sanguinius, FERRUS Manus, and Rogel Dorn.
All of the ones who don't fall.
Yeah, none of these people fall. So good call, Gilliman.
It's good at judging character.
At one point, Fulgrim was talking to Ferrus about Gilliman, and he said, "He admires you, you know," said Fulgrim, with the near telepathy that only the closest of brothers could share. "Greatly. I've heard him say that he counts you and Dorn as the greatest among us." Ferrus snorted and looked away. It is not reciprocated.
Ferrus is just like,
No. So Gilliman's more of a diplomat when it comes to the Primarchs. He's quite a pencil pusher, some have said. So Ferrus is just kind of like, why would you spend all your time writing bullshit and reading books? Why don't you do forge stuff?
what if he forged some books?
Damn.
He's making fucking tablets. He's throwing them into the lizard world. Oh!
Yo! The old one!
All the lizards are like, we gotta put metal on our hands.
We love that shit. I need it. It's time for the big one.
Okay.
The big relationship with Fulgrim.
Pretty guy McGee.
Pretty guy McGee.
Also, I didn't realize Fulgrim has such a hot voice.
Sorry.
I mean-
I'm sorry I've made him hot.
No, it's just you.
You're cute. So as you correctly assumed, Fulgrim and Ferrus's relationship began as a rivalry that escalated. The artisan versus the engineer. They disagreed on everything. It would be like Fulgrim would come up and be like, "This armor is hideous, but it works. This glaive is too fragile, but it's so beautiful," and so on and so forth, this back and forth between these two. Fulgrim even got so petty that he started calling Ferrus the Gorgon.
That is something Regina George would call someone.
And upon asking why would you call him that? He's like, he's so fucking ugly. Look at him.
He's from
Yeah, he called him the Gorgon because he was ugly and he was from Medusa. So eventually this escalated from small disagreements to shouting matches in which a challenge was issued to see who was the greater craftsman.
Oh, okay.
The challenge was to create a weapon perfect for the other Primarch to use.
Interesting.
With a huff, both went to their forges and worked day and night, creating what they both considered to be a weapon that would win the contest. They met again, weapons in hand, and were awestruck. Fulgrim had made a hammer called Forge Breaker. Ferrus was speechless. The weight, the power, everything about it was perfect. And, admittedly, it was aesthetically pleasing. Fulgrim was dumbstruck at the power sword Ferrus had made, simply named Fireblade.
Brissinger.
When activated, the blade would heat itself to a terrifying degrees. Like Ferrus, Fulgrim was impressed with the weight, the shine, the beauty, the everything. It was as if he had made it himself. Both Primarchs insisted that the other's weapon was the clear winner. And after fruitless arguments, both laughed and happily traded weapons, beginning a friendship that would last forever.
Well, until.
But hey! It's a wholesome moment, man. Come on.
No, it's very good. It feels like an episode of Sorted, where the one guy's really into meat and the other guy, and then they come together and they love each other in the end.
Aw.
No, that is cute and interesting. It makes a lot of sense.
They both found a way to respect one another despite their differences.
Absolutely. It feels a little bit Deku
Bakugo. Yeah.
A little bit.
You're so different, but you're so alike. And when you actually work together, you're like best friends.
Yeah. And like you can reach each other's standards. The thing is, you're both just good at what you do and you're detail oriented. If you are making just an axe, but you make it perfectly, you have to have an eye for that. There is detail in that.
Oh, yes.
But if you are also then adding filigree and all this stuff, like you need skill to be able to do that.
Yes.
So it makes sense. Like they both have the same hobby, I'll say, but like they both kind of like appreciate the same things just in different ways.
Exactly. And when they can come together on something, they can create something that's truly, truly amazing.
Mm-hmm. You know what they are?
What's that?
They're Alphaba and Glinda from Wicked.
Oh, yeah.
One is like disliked and weird and ugly and misunderstood and standoffish, but so powerful. So powerful. And the other one is pretty and perfect and popular and has all the money because her family is rich and all the boys like her, but she's also really talented.
It's a common trend.
Wicked starts with their roommates. They get bunked together.
Oh my God, they were roommates.
You know, they're both kind of trying to fix each other the whole time, especially Glinda, being like, popular, you're gonna be popular. And then it doesn't go that great. First, they hate each other because they're so different. And then they come to understand that, like, they're not that different.
Yeah.
They just do it differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
beautiful.
Character contrast.
Yeah.
I have an excerpt here
Okay.
from the point of view of Ferrus talking about Fulgrim and his relationship.
Mm-hmm.
They were so different, yet so alike. The elegant Phoenician and the hideous Gorgon. Ferrus bore his brother no animosity for coining that particular sobriquet. It fit like a glove of liquid steel. Where Fulgrim was contemplative and beatific, he was belligerent and headstrong. Ferrus knew, too, that he had the reputation for being enigmatic, but there was no aspect of his character that had not been molded perfectly to his nature. He was difficult to like, and he liked his brothers little enough, with one exception. To his mind, they were more akin to any Primarch was to another, or the Emperor to his sons. Their differences, so pronounced, were superficial, and it had taken neither being long to recognize what it was they shared: perfection. Both carried a need for it, strove for it, demanded no less from those bound by blood and love to call them father. Only in their methods did they differ. Where Fulgrim would scale any obstacle to reach the heights beyond, Ferrus would shatter it through raw determination and walk over the rubble of its defiance. The ultimate goal and the conviction to claim it first were the same. He drew a breath, ice, water boiling over iron, and commanded it to cool his mind. Perfection. He would demonstrate to all and beyond any doubt, FERRUS MANUS was the first amongst his brothers.
I just saw him jumping in an ice bath like James Kennedy.
Yeah. I do have another excerpt after a situation in which it was becoming kind of obvious Big E was going to take a break. He had to do other things, and so he was going to nominate someone to take his place as the War Master. FERRUS MANUS got an idea. A lot of Primarchs were trying to show off that they were really good at leading other legions. FERRUS MANUS decided to take, I think it was 3 legions together and command them all at the same time, one of which being the Ultramarines. And it failed spectacularly. Like, absolutely did not get the job done. He was very bad at leading the legions that were not his own.
Okay.
And he got really fucking mad about it.
Right.
I thought I could lead the legions as well as I led my own. It turns out I haven't the patience for it. Fulgrim emitted a whisper of muffled laughter. Ferrus glared. You are not imperfect, brother. You are... His eyes turned upward as if seeking the word amongst the stars beyond the great arched windows of the hall. Say special and I will hit you right here in front of everyone. FERRUS MANUS and Fulgrim would fight in many battles together. The elegance of the Emperor's children contrasted perfectly to the brutal nature of the Iron Hands. But in the coming heresy, this bond would be tested.
I am not autistic.
I got that dog in me, Fulgrim. But that's really all I have about FERRUS Manus in
Oh.
terms of his origin and his basics and stuff. So that's about it. How you feeling? How you like FERRUS Manus?
I feel like I have very mixed feelings on him.
Mm-hmm.
I like aspects of him,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't like other aspects of him.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I would be interested in a alternate timeline in which he didn't go out so early to see how his character might be more fleshed out.
Yeah.
I find a lot to empathize with FERRUS Manus.
Yeah.
I feel FERRUS Manus really resembles a bit of the stereotype of what it is to be a man.
Yeah. Yep.
And it reminds me a lot of how I was raised as someone who is male presenting, how I was sort of taught what I was supposed to be. You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be able to do everything the first try. And if you don't do everything the first try, get angry, get mad. And I think there's honestly a bit of a deep sadness to FERRUS, resembled primarily through his iron hands. I don't know, there's a bit of it that strikes me as if he could not be this way, he would take it.
Certainly for his sons. He doesn't want them to have to be this way.
Absolutely. No. And I find that quite tragic, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Because, again, as someone who was raised by a man who I would deem as quite rigid in what he believed what it was to be the man of a household due to family things, and taught me what it was like to do that as well, I feel that there is a lot to be pitied about that.
Mm-hmm.
Because you see someone who is like that, and you can kind of tell, like, that's not really you.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of putting on an act.
Yeah.
But you've been doing it for so long that you just kind of are that now.
Yeah.
To the point where he's called a really mean nickname by his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, like, he doesn't really mind it, but it's like, that kind of sucks, man.
It's also interesting. I mean, the nickname itself, you know, you could pull a lot out of there.
The Gorgon. The idea is the Gorgon is so ugly.
It's oaf-like. It's like a troll.
Yeah. The joke from Fulgrim's perspective is like, you're so ugly that if you looked at someone, or if someone looked at your face, they would turn to stone.
Yeah.
That kind of vibe.
Yeah.
And maybe FERRUS did have a bit of a problem with it, but once they became friends, he was like, whatever, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Because as we can see from that excerpt, he grew to kind of not really care.
Yeah. And I think also, especially when it comes to family, sometimes nicknames that start off as maybe not so nice almost grow on you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very sibling thing.
Yes. But no, I mean, what you're describing is literally toxic masculinity.
Yep.
And hegemonic masculinity, to be more academic. And it's an important distinction because masculinity in itself is in no way a bad thing.
No, absolutely not.
The traits that we associate with being male, or like the male spectrum of behavior or whatever, it's not inherently bad at all. There are, you know, but when something becomes a disadvantage, when something begins to hurt a person or people, when something is disadvantaging, it becomes toxic. Toxic masculinity literally is just people who are trying to present masculinity or are presenting masculinity are so stuck in that cookie cutter that they are doing things to the point of potentially harming others and themselves. There's nothing wrong with reacting in anger, but when you let that anger get to the point where you hurt someone or yourself, that's unacceptable. There is nothing wrong with feeling like a protector, but when you don't let other people have their own freedoms, that's not okay.
When you take it too far.
Yeah.
And obviously we've gone from what is like written explicitly in the books into how I am interpreting this character because, again, there's not a whole lot. But upon looking more into FERRUS, I felt, as I talked about earlier, just a really strong sense of almost familiarity in like, I've seen this behavior before. I've done this behavior before. And it's really sad to me. We had a whole post talking about how I wanted to make FERRUS Manus pretty cool. And there was an interesting comment that we got from user Jetlag, who talked about they personally think FERRUS Manus as a man of hate.
Okay.
He hates himself for being weak, yet desires weakness all the same. He holds Fulgrim in high regard because Fulgrim is everything that he wishes he was. Everyone tells of Fulgrim's beauty, and everyone calls Ferrus ugly, and he internalizes this. He tries to be more diplomatic and calm-headed, but it fails. And so he gets angry. He appreciates the power that his hands give him, yet he hates himself for using it at all. He loves his sons enough to wish that they wouldn't hurt themselves, yet is incapable of expressing this as he lacks any sort of emotional communication. He views himself as ugly and weak, and he hates himself for it. He resolves to be what everyone says that he is, a Brutus monster, a Gorgon. And I think that's really well put.
Yeah.
And I responded to this comment talking about how much I agreed with them and how I get the idea. Obviously, again, this is how I'm interpreting this character, is that he's sort of wearing this mask of stoicism, and I just find that so sad from a character analysis point of view. And obviously, you can hear this and totally disagree. This is, again, just how I have latched on to this character, and I find that there's a lot to say about it.
Well, and you also have an interesting perspective, I would say, as a person who, while you did try to fit into that box, you later found that it really wasn't at all a box that you identified with. Like, there are aspects of your personality that are masculine,
Obviously.
but you consider yourself non-binary. And because of that, there's almost even more of that sense of dysphoria that was probably placed upon you in the assertion of these are the things that are valued and make you valuable as a male.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the weirdest assumption that if you do not exhibit these behaviors,
It makes you lesser.
then you are less of a male.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ridiculous.
Why are you showing emotion? Are you happy? What are you doing? Are you crying? What are you, a bitch? What are you, a pussy? Stop that.
Which ironically, the insults are you a woman?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. No, I just feel like in like an alternate reality or something, like Ferrus would just be like a really chill engineer just working on cars all day.
Yeah.
And then people would just come by and be like, hey man, could you fix my vehicle? He's like, on it, man. I'm down.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm in there.
I'd be fascinated to see where the story would have gone had he not gotten the hands. Would it have been worse or better?
Yeah, that would be an interesting what if. I feel like he would feel differently about himself. And obviously his legion wouldn't give themselves prosthetics and start cutting their limbs off because they believe the flesh is weak. That wouldn't have happened. There is a alternate universe called the Dornian Heresy. I've mentioned it a few times, where the Iron Hands actually become so obsessed with technology that they start integrating Necron tech into their bodies. So that's pretty neat. I think that's a cool...
Techron?
Yeah, I think that's a cool what-if scenario.
Absolutely.
Where they, like, instead of going into the more flesh thing, into, like, no more machines.
There are a lot of stories where often male characters, something about them gives them great power and makes them different, but it is also a curse or something in some way. And so because of that, they might learn to appreciate whatever this thing is that is about them. But because they can't let it go, because either it's like literally attached to them in some way, or like it is why they are useful to their cause, they kind of have to learn to embrace it, or they just like hate themselves secretly under the table the whole time.
Yeah.
I think of Eren in Attack on Titan.
Oh, yeah.
And you've, I think, done a lot more thinking about his psychology than I have. But I think when he first realized I shifted, not that he had the word for it, he was pretty appalled, freaked out. There was hatred towards himself in there.
Later, yeah, that's a point in one of the later story arcs where he talks about how when that happened, he didn't even question it because it was just a way to get stronger. It was a new tool in his belt.
Yeah.
That's when he, as you said, he sort of realizes and he's sort of shocked that like he never really questioned that.
Yeah.
I will say it is quite a theme in Warhammer that there are many characters across Age of Sigmar, across fantasy, across 40k that have an ability or a thing about them that they absolutely despise, but they have to use it. There's a character in fantasy who is literally possessed by a demon, and in quite a few life or death situations, he has to let that demon take over his body because otherwise they're not going to survive.
Like Itadori from Jujutsu Kaisen.
Yeah.
I think, like, having a curse is a good way to put it.
Mm.
Something where it is a curse, but maybe there's a benefit.
My hands, my butcher's nails, my demon. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always interesting having a character with that because it's interesting seeing what they do with it.
Which, like, I think a lot of men would describe how their masculinity affects them as their demons, or their mental health as their demons.
Yeah, absolutely. I've met a lot of people who are coming out of like that hyper masculine role, and it's a lot to get used to.
It is a lot, and you should not feel bad.
No, of course not. It's okay to change and to grow.
It's okay to change. It's okay to be who you actually want to be. And if that is like a very masculine,
Sure.
then yeah, just
don't be like weird about it.
don't do it in a way that hurts yourself or others, you know?
Yeah, just don't be weird about it, man.
Yeah. Like, I would consider Alex to be quite masculine.
Yeah, I would say that.
And sometimes I really worry about him in the sense that, like, he is the kind of person who will push himself too far if he thinks others need him to.
I mean, how many times have I literally stayed up to the point where it has almost been 24, 26 hours just working on a video?
Mm-hmm. There is a stoicism expected of men.
Mm.
And there's nothing wrong with being stoic.
Yeah, that's fine.
I love How to Train Your Dragon. Gerard Butler is the GOAT. But
To move back to 40k
Yeah.
and away from these heavier topics, which if you found any comfort in that, please let us know.
I just got an image of him getting EMDR, and he's looking at this person's normal hands and getting triggered as fuck.
There's not a whole lot that Ferrus has done in terms of like interesting stories, but there is one
Okay.
that I can think of at the top of my head, which is at one point he and his legion were flying through space in their big ship, the Fist of Iron,
Oh.
and they found a ship,
Okay.
a Iron Hands ship
Oh, shouldn't he know where those are?
from the 41st millennium.
Uh-oh. Wait. Oh, they got warped.
Yep. They got warped. And I don't remember exactly how he felt about it. Obviously, he was like, what the fuck? But I think he was quite upset, obviously, by what he had seen, because by that time, his legion had gone full into the let's replace everything in our body with machines.
Oh.
Not so much as like a mechanicus, I would say, but quite close to that. As I've said before, they have a very good relationship with the mechanicus. They really like working together because they share so much overlap with the whole flesh hatred.
Yeah. Flesh is lame.
Yeah.
Y'all.
Do you have any questions about FERRUS Manus, his origins, his relationships, his lack of head?
Man, you never want to be the guy with a lack of head.
You never want to do that.
Obviously, I'm curious where everything goes, you know.
We'll cover that. I want to do the Horus Heresy in probably multiple part episodes. I'm guessing 3 parts, and maybe they'll be a little longer.
Yeah. I'm assuming what happens is going to have quite a bit to do with why Fulgrim goes off.
Yes. A big, Fulgrim falls.
Yeah.
That's like one of the things that because you saw his mini where he was like all snaky and stuff, and you were like, that's Fulgrim.
It's to the point where it shouldn't be called a mini anymore.
It's very big.
It's huge.
His relationship with Ferrus is a big part of that.
Mm-hmm.
We will probably cover that in the first part of the Horus Heresy, but again, we have quite a bit to go there. We're on Primarch 3 of 18, so we're getting there, but it'll take some time.
Yeah. Does his homeworld get taken care of at all? You said he wasn't really a leader of it.
So after Big E came by, much like the other planets, they get support from the Imperium. It became a bit of a forge world in the sense of, obviously, that's where all the Iron Hands come from. The environment of Medusa is something that Ferrus really likes, actually. He really respects the planet because it's what made him who he is. So there were probably talks of like, oh, do you want us to like use our crazy high-tech stuff to like terraform it? And he probably would have said no because it made me as strong as I am. So my sons, if they are raised on this planet, will probably be as strong as I will. And they'll have the same values as me, and they'll have the same skills and yada, yada, yada.
I just got your canola oil joke.
My hand dipped in 500-degree canola oil.
You think he was ever like, hey, watch this? And then Vulcan was like, pussy shit.
I would like to tell you the difference between Ferrus and the other Smith. Obviously, he's more of a get it done kind of guy.
Yeah.
I specifically use the term engineer, whereas Vulcan I would describe as a blacksmith, and Perturabo I would describe as an artisan. Rogel Dorn, I would describe as an architect. And Fulgrim, I would describe as an artist. And I think that's a good way to sort of encapsulate what they value and how they are different.
They're all working on their hand of the land.
Yeah.
They're all using Waste Not.
They're all leveling in the Ishgardian Restoration.
Everybody is like, tink, 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 tink. And this guy's like, oh, bam, 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 bam. Then his girlfriend runs up and is like, can you put these together? I'm not high enough level.
Interestingly, and we'll talk more about this in Vulcan's own episode, Vulcan makes weapons of mass destruction,
Oh.
but he would never use them.
I like everything about Vulcan, and beside my head, just there, I got the little, like, person, minus.
-2 for Vulcan.
Yeah. My social link just went down.
I mean, we'll break it down more in his episode to talk about how he feels about that kind of thing. But yeah,
well, that's unfortunate.
he and Ferrus got along in those respects.
Nuking people?
I mean, again,
That's not a good way to get along.
he doesn't like that he makes these things, but he kind of doesn't really have a choice, which, again,
You need Rogue One.
the button.
Get you a daughter that can go and get the plans, and Mark Hamill will deal with it.
Really, Vulcan? You think just living here on this planet, that's enough for you? It's a simple life. Any other questions?
Which one's the next one we're doing?
Which is the next Primarch?
Yeah.
Fulgrim.
Oh,
So
Nick.
we're getting
Okay.
quite a bit of contrast, and we probably won't revisit their relationship between Ferrus and Fulgrim. We'll definitely mention it, obviously, but like we've covered most of it here. But we will talk about how Fulgrim operates and how he behaves in battle, and there's a lot more than just a few books and a few short stories this time.
I feel like these two get shipped a lot.
There's quite a bit of art of them. I don't know about shipping.
Well, I can tell you.
Well, I don't know. I have never seen it.
Let me tell you something about women.
Something about women. That brings a wrap to FERRUS Manus, Iron Hand, Primarch of the Iron Hands.
Played by Robert Downey Jr.
Their logo, an Iron Hand. On their ship, the Fist of Iron. Yeah. What's up?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That's what happens to his head. Do you think he gets to go on the wild hunt at Hogwarts?
Why do you say that?
Because he's actually headless?
Oh.
Nearly headless? How can you be nearly headless?
Oh. There is a theory that he is a ghost in modern day 40k.
What?
Would you have liked... Ooh,
Oh.
we're on the new microphones.
Guys, look at this.
Oh. Would you have liked to seen Ferrus headline more books? What do you think of the Ferrus Fulgrim headcanon the fandom has latched onto? Do you think that Ferrus could have gotten ahead of his Legion's obsession with cybernetics if he had the chance? Okay, I'll stop with the head puns. On a more serious note, do you feel like FERRUS Manus got fridged in the Horus Heresy books? Honestly, yes, for
glad
reasons that we talked about in this episode.
I'm glad that we could head it off with this question.
God, I would have liked to seen FERRUS Manus in more media. I hope retroactively we can get more books added on to like maybe what he was doing per se, the Great Crusade. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
I wouldn't describe him though as getting fridged just because he does seem to have an actual character. If you're referring to the concept of the woman in the fridge, I feel like he has more agency than that. He does get killed off quickly and become for the reason of motivating the other characters, it seems, which is unfortunate.
Blip bloop or blob honk? Blip bloop.
Abadi abadai.
If you had to choose one of the big manga to nix, Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, Sailor Moon, etc., which would it be and why? One Piece, because I've just never really gotten into it.
I don't know. I guess out of that list, One Piece, but that's just because...
Like me, you haven't really interacted with it.
Well, yeah, I mean, out of that list, it's the one I'm the least interested in.
Yeah.
But I don't want to get canceled. I don't mind One Piece. I read One Piece and I had other things to do.
I want to get people mad. Fuck One Piece. That's not serious. Have you discovered the trap in your new PC yet? What? Oh.
Is this like when I thought the cleaning rags were in the PC, but it turned out to be the reflection on the glass case? and I was sure that John had on purpose put Lysol wipes into the PC. Or are they watching us on the webcam right now?
I don't know.
Hi, guys.
If you could have a crossover game of Age of Sigmar versus 40k, what factions would be top contender for you to see fight one another? Or if you could bring one army from AOS to 40k, which one would it be? I think,
Rats.
yes, rats coming to 40k would be really funny.
That would be fun.
That would be great.
Or an army of Slan.
True.
75 Lord Croaks.
That's too many.
No, it's not. Not enough.
40,000 Lord Croaks.
One for every year of the...
The setting.
I was trying to think of the word Horacy. Wait, Harris? It always comes out Horacy.
The Horacy.
That was his OnlyFans account.
As for Age of Sigmar versus 40k, I think to demonstrate how different they truly are, have people witness Stormcast Eternals versus Space Marines. Because the amount of times that they get called, oh, they're just Age of Sigmar Space Marines, when that is not true. They're very different.
Real ghosts would also be fun.
Yeah.
Especially if
No, 40K has
Ferrus
ghosts.
was leading them.
40K has ghosts.
But they don't have Juan.
Maybe not.
That's C. We need Juan and we need Croak.
Who is the Batman? Last I checked, it was Bruce Wayne.
I'd like to think it's Gordon Ramsay.
That'd be really funny.
That's why he's so mad all the time.
Serious question, what is your biggest pet peeve? I hate when people spoil things
That is annoying.
out of nowhere.
One time I told my aunt that I wanted to watch this movie because I heard that like the twist was good, and she was like, oh, is that the one where the twist happens? And I was like,
Yeah, Auntie, it is.
I'm so upset. I'd say that as a reaction to a genuine mistake, if somebody gets mad and not just corrects, anytime I see that happening, it really bothers me because I'm like, you're not helping. You're just making it worse. You're making everyone stressed.
Why is Updog?
Because I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a dog named Dog.
Oh, Columbo.
Doing doggy things. But also, have you considered the fact that, like, we exist?
Stop.
And we actually
Stop
have the
it.
ability to not just perceive
Thank you, everybody, for
ourselves and our
watching.
experiences, but
Support us on
the very
Patreon.
nutrients that we consume and
Check
then
out our
eventually
merch.
becomes ourselves. And so for
Support
the
us
hot
on the
dog
algorithm.
to become a down
code
dog
numbskulls
into
on
our
Gamer
digestive
Subs.
track, we must lift
Love
it
y'all.
with our very hands
See you guys in the next video.
into our nom-nommers, and thus it must
Stop.
ascend
Stop.
as the up dog.
Almost time for Halloween. Don't come to my house or else I'll suck your dick. Blood. I'll suck your blood. Oh, shit.